Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the jungle. I'm your host, Hamilton Winters. Dude, I could not be more excited to be joined by my good friend, Ethan Cortazzo. Ethan, what's up, dude?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me.
Dude, we've had so many amazing conversations over the past few months. I've been looking forward to this one because I'm the only one that gets to benefit from what you say on a phone call. But everybody gets to benefit from what you say on the podcast today.
I love it. Yes.
So I know how high the bar is set because you're just a phenomenal person.
Wow.
I'm blessed to be your friend. Even more thankful to be in studio with you instead of on Zoom.
Yes.
So I'll start like I always start. Introduce yourself. Give them a little bit of background on what you do, who you are, and kind of how this relationship started.
Yeah, thanks for that intro, man. Setting the bar. And the same goes for you. Like, just the Zoom calls, the meetings, the interactions that we've been able to have has been such a blessing, man. You're incredible. The way you handle your business, the way you conduct yourself, not just in the studio, I'd imagine, but closer to the mic. Mic check. You do this for a profession, man. This is new to me. But yeah, so anyways, for the people that don't know me, I'm Ethan Cortazzo. My story began in Arizona, man. I grew up in Arizona and really wanted to pursue college athletics and chased college football, toured around the country, and ended up in Georgia about a year ago. So I ended up playing Division I football, transferred to got my master's at Grand Valley State, and then, just wanted to get into the business sector, wanted to get into the business field, and got my start in sales at a company called Pratt Industries in Michigan. Ended up doing exceptionally well, and then took a position out here to get into the software development game. So the company I work for now is in Atlanta, Georgia, or really it's Alpharetta up north about 30 minutes, called ONEtechnology. And it's been incredible, man. It's been so uncomfortable for me to be in this space because not only did I not know anything truly about software, but what we've developed is a no-code progressive web app, and to layman's, I didn't know what that meant, right? And so as I've gone through my career here in Atlanta, it's been incredible just to get the context and understanding of the value we provide to our client base. So, so I don't know if that answers the question, but man, I played ball, ended up in Georgia, been here for about a year. But how we met, man, it was just total God thing. I remember seeing you a couple times. I'm an active member at Passion City Church, and I remember seeing you, man, and you hosted an event at the Buckhead, Atlanta Tech Village, and you just facilitated between Lake and Jana, and there's something different about you, the way you conducted it, your presence, and I never went up to you. Then a couple other times, I think we saw each other maybe in service, and then where I really connected with you was at the Purpose on It tab, and that was at a brewing...
Monday night.
Yeah, Monday night.
Yeah.
And man, we just connected, and from that point on, I was like, these are type of men that I want to continue to align myself with as a young professional.
Yeah.
So
I'll never forget that. And although I had not had any interaction with you beforehand, you just feel connected.
Yes.
Right? I mean, from the first time I shook your hand, you reached out like that, and I know it's going to be a good handshake if the hand goes up like that, and it's a little bit cupped, and you come through. And man,
that's like a core philosophy for me. Like for anyone listening to this, I think it'd be interesting to do a market study, or go to the grocery store and look at people's posture. Yeah. Right. Go to work and look at people's posture. How many times do people sit on a call, a Zoom, or you go to the grocery store and they're walking like this, right? They're frustrated, and you're like, man, I've never seen you before. Like what is going on? Yeah. So what I've done is, dude, open it up. Like, what is more welcoming? If I would have met you like this, hi, how's it going?
Can't wait to talk to this guy.
Can't wait to talk to this guy, But it's like, man, I just open it up because I just want to be welcoming, right? I want to really get to know people for who they are, and when we connected, I think that's the present that we felt was just an open mind, and there's some opening notes, man, that I just loved about. Same with you though. It was two-sided, so.
It's going in like this instead of like this. You can't catch anything when you have clenched fist.
Come on.
But if you open up and have those just open palms, say, hey, look, man, I'm willing to catch whatever you're willing to give me.
Yes.
It's like Mardi Gras. You never catch any beads if you got closed fists.
Come on.
You're going to come home with a bag full of throws if you reach out like this and just catch whatever they're throwing. But little Louisiana metaphor there. My state's getting pummeled right now about that.
I heard. I was looking at the videos, and how's your family? Praying for them.
They're good. We've lost a few limbs and that kind of stuff. Thankfully, they're up in northeast Louisiana instead of southwest. But just, man, it's a shame.
Yeah,
be praying for those folks.
Yeah, lifting them up, man. And it's just starting, right? So keep me in the loop. And one thing I was thinking about is that as a receiver, right, open hands, right, the Midas touch, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't truly matter the route that was ran. I mean, there's foundational things that you get taught as a football player, as a receiver. I played college football, played receiver, but when you get adversity, when you get press coverage, when you get people in your face, kind of the training is out the window, you know? So what happens is you just got to become reactionary, make a play, but it doesn't matter unless you catch the ball. And if you got closed hands, how many balls are we going to catch? But it's a journey.
Yep.
And that's what you're getting at. It's like the journey is, man, the route is important. The job, the career, the path that we could be called for is important. But the journey, man, and opening up those hands, it just takes a split moment to make that catch, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to give a lot of probably sports analogies today.
Please do. I mean, I get a lot of them on our phone calls. We have a standing bi-weekly phone call.
Yes.
And but you relate to what you know.
For sure.
And certain metaphors that I use are not sports because I didn't play college sports. I mean, I did growing up. But, you know, you connect with what you know. And I think it's really special to hear those sports analogies and to see not only how you've used sports in the past, but how you've drawn from your experience in sports, and now you're being able to use those principles and those values and ideals in your business career, which just watching your journey of, hey, man, I'm struggling to really catch up. This is a new industry for me, and I'm uncomfortable. You use the word uncomfortable, which I love the word uncomfortable, because you're never growing when you're comfortable.
Come on.
You're only growing when you're uncomfortable. So you're chasing that discomfort of, man, I know this is where I need to be, but it's not necessarily where I want to be. Yeah. But if I'm here long enough, where I need to be becomes where I want to be. And so I'm watching someone step into not necessarily where they want to be, but where they need to be in order to step into that calling. It's really special from somebody on the outside getting to watch.
Thank you,
I mean, watching you take that phone call right before you walked in, and just you're in charge. And you're controlling the event, but you're doing it in a way that's loving and that's open. And so just wanted to let you know, from the outside looking in, it's a pretty sweet picture.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I think some of the stuff that I realized since I stepped in this role as sales director for ONEtechnology, it's funny. It's like the higher up you go chasing a title, the less your time goes. It's like, where'd my time go? Because when I was a sales rep, right, playing a lot of golf, I had my mornings from 7 o'clock calls lined up till 3, lined up till 4, and then I was on the golf course, man. I had dinner meetings, but I had everything buttoned up. And then it's funny because when you kind of step into the higher roles of responsibility, the more hats that have to be worn. So stepping out of this first role that I was in, I worked for Pratt Industries, which is the 5th largest consumer goods packaging company, and really knew what my value was, and that's driving sales. And I knew the components around me. But as I took this role, it was uncomfortable, and that's why I took it. I knew that I was going to fail, and I was going to probably fail really hard, and I have. And it was going to be tough, and there was going to be days where, like, I didn't really want to open the door and step into the meeting because I was like, what's about to go down? Please, kids, like, close your ears. Like, this is going to be bad. But, man, you're absolutely right. And that's the way and the environment I want to be in, and to be challenged. And how many times do we hear, Hamilton, great job. I'm proud of you, right? Great job. I'm proud of you. That feels really good. But, like, that's a bar, right? I want to go over that. So I challenge that. If I'm around friends that are just saying, hey, man, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you, that's a complacent mindset. And that doesn't allow uncomfortability and growth to happen and transpire. And it'd be the same thing through sports, right? If all my coaches said, as a true freshman coming in, Ethan, you are so good, man. You are one of the best receivers that ever came into school. just keep having fun, keep making plays. Like, hey, I could be successful, but where am I going to sharpen and become a true professional or true, master of my craft? And so yeah, I would encourage like people to go after that because that's what life is about. Yeah. Without that sharpening, that refining process, when you look at that gold, like if you just take the bar of gold and you pour it in and you just cast it out and you do one slick, grind and sand dig and you look up, you're like, man, this is like kind of golden, but like the more you refine it, that's like a marksman, right? The more you refine that gold, the more you get the impurities out. When you hold that sword up or that gold up, when you see a reflection, that's what the true marksman is after, right? And that's what I look to pursue in my career, is really put myself in an environment to where I'm not the oldest person, one, right? And I'm not the wisest person, because if I'm in that room, I'm not in the right room, right? So a lot of things I've been doing on my role now is really being a Swiss Army knife. I'm not in the same sales role where, I'm doing a lot of cold calling, prospecting, but a lot of the stuff I've been doing has been internal, like business management, facilitating contracts, negotiating legal, sending documentation to other partners and coordinating between the partners and software development. It's been like kind of like this, like stretched pretty wide, but that's where I want to be. I think I have emphasis and focus. Having the car paid for, the $600 a month, the mileage, having the expense account, having that salary with the ceiling. I'm putting myself in an environment where, dude, it's a PhD in entrepreneurship and business and development and software and so many different inter and intra communication skills. So, but to be honest, man, it does get tough and it does suck at times. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so there's a metaphor now that I use, but it is drawn from an actual experience that I had, where a buddy of mine invited me to a dinner at Chops Club.
Great restaurant.
In Buckhead. I'm 22 at the time, and so like he invites me. I go there occasionally with him, but this is like a big dinner. Okay. And it's going to be, I think, 10 or 12 people at the table, and he's told me who all these people are. And it's like VPs and CEOs and doctors and lawyer, whoever his big circle is, and me. I'm like, well, I don't deserve to be here. And he's like, no, you do. I want you to be at the table. I want you to see how everything works. Went to dinner. It was awesome. The food was great. The conversation was great. And just watching it all work. Yeah. And my friend who invited me, I didn't see him much throughout the night. And so the more I thought about that in the days and weeks after, I was thinking to myself, if you have a seat at the table, right, that's an awesome position to be in. Who wouldn't want a seat at that table? But that's not the best position to be in. The best position to be in is to be the guy who invited everybody to the table, because everything that happens at the table is directly traced back to the person that connected them. Yes. And so you seem to be a connector, which is a great trait, and it's something that you can't necessarily even learn. It's something that's innate. Not to say you can't train to become more of a connector, but there are some people that just have it innately within them that want to connect and find those overlap areas of, hey, look, I got two buddies, and I know that they would be fantastic together. Let me just set the, it's an email, it's a phone call, it's lunch one day that takes 30 minutes to an hour, and who knows what kind of magic can happen. But you get two matchsticks, which is another metaphor that I like to use. It only takes two matchsticks bumping together to create enough friction that you light a fire, and then that match could be the reason why you light your fireplace. That fireplace could turn into a bonfire. The bonfire could turn into a wildfire, and then the whole landscape changes because one match bumped into another. And there's a book by Kevin McCarthy called The On-Purpose Person. I don't know if you had the chance to read it, but an exercise in there is to create your purpose statement. And he says, I exist to serve by blank, blank. And he gives an example of like Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong might have existed to serve by taking steps. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. What is it that you exist to serve by? And that becomes a light switch of, are you on purpose or are you off purpose? And everything you do, you're either on purpose or you're off purpose. So you go back to that statement. Mine is, I exist to serve by lighting fires.
Yes, come on.
Because if I can bump my matchstick into somebody else, I might accidentally just strike a wildfire. So it seems like that's the person that you are, because I'm a beneficiary of it. That you've connected me with folks that otherwise I wouldn't know. And folks have connected me with you. And you start realizing that you might be in a city of 6.5 million people, but it's small.
Small, brother.
It's small. I mean, the conversation we just had out there in the lobby.
Yes.
Like, I know 5 or 6 people that she knows just through church. And, they led my Israel trip, or they did this, that, and
she's
the other.
Been doing it for years.
I feel like I know the same amount of people here as I do in the town that I grew up in.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. But it takes to be the type of person that you already are to really step into that and say, I don't know what's going to happen when I walk in this room, but it's not on me.
And we talk about like really knowing your gifts, right? And I remember kind of sharing, I want to say like maybe a month ago, I'm getting reminded that we had a conversation about that. And how many times is that, like, those are like, that's a business. Like, people literally go into businesses and make thousands and millions of dollars to where they connect businesses. Like, you ever heard of a broker?
Yeah.
Someone who brokers a deal, which connects 2 parties together.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the stuff going on in the market space with the PPE and the testing and all that's a huge marketplace where people are connecting. Right. But it's a huge value. And honestly, it's just business by relationships. Right. A lot of the times, just in my short career, a lot of the value I see in opening up accounts, creating value, is people want to do business with who they like, one, but also like hold the glass upside down. Instead of asking if it's half empty, half full, like hold it upside down and just look at it different, think different, say, who can I drive creation or value to this business? Maybe beyond what I'm trying to sell to you, because my foot in the door might not start by me going direct to Hamilton and Liger Partners, right? But if I can intro you to a value creator or somebody, some industry, some company, some person that can come in and drive success in an organization, there's always going to be a because, right? Think about this. It's like, hey, I might fall short as a business partner, right? I might miss an order. I might miss a call. I might, forget a decimal or whatever that looks like. But with that true business by relationships, there's always that, think in the back of your mind, because he's a good guy. Like, he connected and because like he brought in so-and-so, or that's the power of influence, right? And I just think, and that's a huge thing to kind of live by, not because I want expectations for this account, just because that's who we are. That's who we're called to be. When I think about our relationship, it does make the community, because 8 months ago, I was living in a house with guys and ended up getting my own place and moved to the city. I've never lived in the city by myself ever. Like, I'm not a spring chicken by any means, but growing up in a house full of 6 people, I'm the youngest. I have a twin sister, 2 older brothers. Always had animals, always had dogs, always had noise, always had people, always played sports, always did all this stuff. Always. I was always going. But when I moved into my own place in a new city I've never been before with no relationships, where was the always? Like, there was all new. And then, mind you, when I moved in, I think it was like end of February, 1st of March, in my place in Buckhead, this thing called the coronavirus pandemic like took off, dude, and everything just dropped. So the intentionality behind this model, ideology of just doing business by relationship or friendships by relationships, like, it had to be super intentional. I had to put my mind share behind that. And in that, the city got super big. Like, it did. The city was just, I was kind of lost, bro. I was like in this city, in this place by myself. And I was like, God, like, what the heck am I doing? Right. And so leaning on my relationships I made through community with Passion City and really pouring into these guys. Cause throughout the years, I was a mile wide, but an inch deep. Right. And the Lord put in my heart, it's like, man, Jesus had 12, bro. Like, and they were from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. So what I did, instead of like looking out the windows, like, I just poured into who God put in my life, who my friends I had. So with that, man, these friends have friends, and it's like, instead of guilty by association, it's a friend by association, right? So it's like if I know Hamilton and Hamilton, you know, you conduct your way a certain, you know, you conduct your business, your personal self a certain way, and there's a standard that you have as a man in our community, an active member in society, because we're friends, like there'd be an ideology or a thought that like, hey, maybe I'm a good guy, right? So I think as I poured into these friendships, I mean, that's how we got introduced. And you're right, like you look around with what you're doing on Friday mornings or other church groups or Passion City, like weird connections like this always happen around the city. Yep. To where you go to the grocery store and you're like, Hamilton?
Yeah.
You know? So anyways, I think it's a incredible way to live life. And now being super intentional, even through a pandemic, man, going on Zoom calls with friends or making a way to spend time and make time, jumping on a call, encouraging someone with a message, a voice message, whatever that looks like. I mean, you've done that for me dozens of times. Really makes this massive city of Atlanta with the largest airport, like super small, bro. So
you mentioned a few things in there that I want to unpack. One, it made me think about how one connection, just kind of on the off chance, could change people's lives.
Come on.
My roommate right now, there's a guy named Juan who is from Colombia. He used to go to Passion.
Yeah.
And he came by one day. We knew each other okay. We were friends. We didn't know each other well. And he was like, hey, I want to start this men's group, and I have a guy that you need to meet. Let's meet at La Madeleine up in Dunwoody, and we'll talk about how we form the group. So I can literally stand on that balcony out there and look at La Madeleine, which is where I met my now roommate, Hayden, because this guy was like, you two would really get along. And then that meeting is the reason why he and I lived together this past year.
Wow. And
have just now re-signed for another year of living together. And then he's out of the picture.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him really since then.
Yeah.
He just it was like his whole purpose in our lives was to bring us together.
Come on.
And you get the opportunity to do that. I mean, you don't have to stay part of the story to be the reason why it was written.
Yes.
You don't have to be throughout the entire narrative. You just have to be the one that is the reason why the story even gets written.
Absolutely.
Another thing you mentioned, which I thought was awesome, and I have the metaphors. That's why I get Jesus. He used a lot of metaphors.
Yes.
Is the glass half empty, half full. I was thinking, because you mentioned this, quit looking at the glass and worrying about whether it's half empty or half full. Because if you turn it upside down, it's the Dairy Queen principle. And it falls out, it doesn't matter anyway.
Nice.
It doesn't matter what you have in your cup if when things get turned upside down, it all spills out anyway. And Dairy Queen, they make the blizzard and they turn it upside down and it doesn't fall out of the cup.
Yes.
It's the Dairy Queen principle of if it's half empty or it's half full, you better be preparing for things to get turned upside down. And that's what this whole last 6 months has been.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
People that had the glass half full spilled out just as much as the folks with the glass half empty. So what are you doing to ensure that what's in the glass stays in there when things get turned upside down? I thought that was an interesting point that you made. Yes. I can't even take credit for it. I was just kind of piecing together what you were giving me. But man,
it's so true, bro. Like one of the things I've been sharpening myself on is getting in the message or getting in the mindset of, well, it is a pandemic, right? Well, I don't have to go make sales calls, or I don't have to, and it's a lot of like excuses or just opportunities to do less than that thinking different philosophy, right? Yeah. So it's like, that's like an encouragement is instead of looking at it like an excuse to be less, like let's always strive for more. And that's super important about that match acknowledges like who we're spending our time with, because that conversation earlier is, Hamilton, you're so good, bro. You're incredible, bro. Like that's the same thought of like, well, there's a pandemic, bro.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to do as much as you're capable of, bro. Like you have all these God-given abilities, but bro, just keep them on the shelf. Like keep looking at it, bro. Keep looking at the glass. But it's like, brother, like we want to continue to unite and be around young professionals, old or young, who's pouring into us, who's pouring into the glass, who's saying, the glass should be upside down. Like that's wisdom. And like, that's the challenge. That's the strategy behind this pandemic is how many times, and I'm not a saint, but how many times have I made that excuse? And if I did that in sports, man, like that's how you pull a hamstring.
Yeah.
That's how you get injured, because you're in the gym and you're like looking around, you're like, okay, 3.5, right? But the true teams that have the success and win the championships, dude, they have that accountability and that philosophy from the top down, and like don't allow that stuff to happen. So this is an organizational thing.
Yep.
And even in a church, even in a friendship, and even a mastermind men's group, and in a relationship and romance, like, man, I truly believe that, like, having those core principles, the On Purpose book, like having that outline, that mission statement, especially right now, man, we got to be in the bunkers. Like, we got to be in the trenches. Like, we got to, and we have been, we got to continue to outline. And if anything, if it hasn't worked, refine it.
Yep.
Or if we're not around the right groups, refine it and ask, like, you know, those different questions. Like, think different. Like, what is that goal? What is that mission? And the Dairy Queen, man, I'm getting hungry. It's almost lunchtime. So if there's a Dairy Queen around here, if you look down here, I'm sure you've seen Dairy Queen as well. Costco has some good ice cream cones, but no, man.
Make sure when you turn it upside down that it stays in the can.
I didn't know that was like the calibration test for you. Obviously, you like ice cream and some of these.
We went to Dairy Queen every night while I was at my girlfriend's family's house.
Okay, there you go.
A couple of weeks ago, and so it's just there's no other company that does that. Like, why are you going to turn your product upside down just to prove to somebody that says?
Well, dude, I mean, have you ever had the ice cream cone with cherry dipping on it?
Oh yeah,
there you go, bro.
It's good stuff. You keep using the word refine.
Yeah.
Which I love that word. I was actually on a probably 30-minute phone call with our friend Kurt Brucker last night, and he called me, and he's really good about calling and just encouraging, and really being intentional about things that he or I are struggling with. And so we've been kind of going through this journey of weeding out and getting out some impurities. And that's what refining is, right? It's digging down and letting impurities rise to the top so that you can rid your element of its impurities. And so he was talking about something that used to not bother him, but now it does.
Sure.
He's like, I don't know why this bothers me now, but it used to not bother me. I said, I do. He said, because the more you refine, the deeper the impurities are. And so you couldn't see them in the past. You were worried about the impurities you could see on the surface. The surface is now deeper.
Come on.
And it's different impurities closer to the actual source, right? And that's how you know that you are refining, right? You can look at impurities all day long. It's like the commercial of the dental monitor. It's like, oh, yeah, you got some bad cavities. All right, let's go to lunch. It's like you can look at it and know that you have some issues.
Sure.
But it takes somebody that's willing to go out there and recruit some miners and some forgers of you that are willing to take a pickaxe and just start laying into you, right? In the most loving way possible, right? You're looking for those guys that are going to challenge you and be like, hey, man, I see one. I found an impurity. Are you willing to do what it takes to eradicate it? Otherwise, what's my purpose of continuing to dig?
Absolutely.
Right? You're just beating on that hard, on that soft, hot piece of metal to eventually make it into a sword. But if you just keep digging it, deeper in water, cool water, and cooling it off, you're never going to temper it. It needs to be hot. It needs to be cold. It needs to be hit. It needs to be hot, cold, hit, hot, cold, hit. And then you've got this beautiful, sharp sword without any impurities. But it's going to take some beatings.
Absolutely.
And some heat.
And Kurt is the man, and he is so good at that, man. I think you sparked something I want to touch on, man. There's this new philosophy, right? We've talked a little bit about the ministry or business I'm starting with. It's called BIT Ministries, BIT Corporation, whatever you want to call it. And it stands for bringing it to the table. Bring it to the table. We already have the website domain, so if anyone's getting this idea, but essentially what it is just doing life differently. Yeah. And culturally, we're taught to really suppress or hold things in. So as an athlete, right, as I go play football and we have a long season, we have a long training session, we have an off season, we have a fall camp, then we have games, then there's practices leading up to the games. And it's a violent game. It's a physical sport. And until I really got out of it, I realized how dangerous the game is. Yeah. But what happens is is, do we roll ankles? We jam fingers. I remember my senior year, man, I had, when I went up to the checkout for graduation with our physical team, our physicians, I had like a page, and they're like, look, take the next 4 months off and don't do anything, right? But think about this. So as the athlete, as the culture that we're in, we take those injuries and we play through them. So as an athlete, on game 3, I'm not going to be as fresh as I am on game 8. I might be more, I might be less, but I'm going to play through that pain. And I might not tell my coaches or whatever it is. And I'll talk from my perspective. I tended to take that philosophy into emotions or life or business, where it's like, I see something that should be done, but I don't know, it's uncomfortable, and I'm just going to play through it. I'm just going to, I'm going to move on. Right. Or in a relationship, it's like, hey, a friendship, Kurt and you guys are on this call last night. It's like, hey bro, like, you're doing a great job. Like, just keep it up. It's like, no, but it's subconscious or conscious, like they know that. But this bringing to the table mission is to challenge that and be countercultural, because culturally we think, hey, I tell you, you get mad at me, you don't talk to me, we're not friends anymore. Relationally, hey, I didn't like how you treated me at dinner last night. I'm not going to tell you, and I'm just going to keep bottling it up. So 3 weeks from now, it explodes into something that is like a dam, dude. It's dammed up with water and it just explodes. And like, I say some words to you that I probably shouldn't have said. So this bringing to the table mission, dude, is counterculture. It's allowing the Spirit to move and the Holy Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, and just talking through and opening up a space. Because when I tell you, bro, like, that upset me, you can do this better. Hey, business owner, boss, like, we could pivot and we could be more successful instead of holding it in to where I'm in a meeting and it comes out. And, because that's countercultural. And what happens, bro, in my experience in this mission is more growth, more depth, more relationship, more trust, more vulnerability, like more openness. And that's what I'm hearing. Like, dude, just bringing it to the table, holding the space, sitting down. And, it's just encouragement as well, because how many times as I reflect back on my scenarios that I just bottled things up and then exploded on the guy at the grocery store, or, somebody who was just a clerk that was just doing their job, right? And that's not the person I want to be. So with this mission, like, it's just a way of like kind of formulating, living life. And some of those conversations are tough, right? But once you have them, the amount of sense of kind of clarity that happens, right? If you didn't know I played sports background and you didn't know, I have bad knees, and you keep asking me to go running, right? We're running. You're in the fitness, you're in the running. We both live in Buckhead, and it's like, bro, I love running. That's like one of my love languages, whatever it is. That's what my friends do, is we go running. And I'm like, Hamilton, like, I don't want to run. Like, stop asking me if I want to run. How do you internalize that? It's tough. But if I'm like, Hamilton, bro, let me tell you, when I was a sophomore in college, I ran this post corner route, and as I planned it, I tore my ACL, right? And I had ACL surgery. And ever since then, when I run on pavement, I get super uncomfortable. And for the next several days, man, it's not for me. Like, it's very challenging. You're like, okay, let's move on. Like, let's do something that we can do together. So that's bringing it to the table, bro. And I think it's powerful.
As you're talking, this is maybe the marketing brain. The term that's widely used, especially in politics or in meetings, is let's table it, which means let's not talk about it today. We'll talk about it another time. And so, which is the opposite of what you guys are doing. You can either table it or you can bring it to the table.
Yes.
When everybody else wants to table a certain subject, we're bringing it to the table to talk about it.
Absolutely.
We're exposing it instead of covering up what we're doing. So take from it what you will, but that thought process of that is exactly what you guys are answering, which is this whole cultural norm of just table it. I don't need to talk about that. We're just gonna table it.
So just hang. Like, this is what I say is a lot of people like escape. Like, Hamilton, when you tell me something that gets upset, how many times does a friend, a family member, a relationship hang up the phone?
Yeah.
Get lost in social media.
Yep. Distractions.
Take a walk. Take a hike. Go do all these things. They escape, but it doesn't get to the root cause of like what's truly going on behind that. And so holding that space to have that, you're absolutely right. In business, like, if I knew like the direction we're going, like, that helps me. If I knew the clarity of the mission behind what we're doing, but if we're just guessing, if it's just up in air, like, how can I be the best value to what we're doing in this business I'm involved with, or multiple businesses, or life? So it's a challenge. Like, I would ask the viewers, whoever's watching, man, and even you, would be sit down and refine, like, what are things that we're not bringing to the table, right? Between a friendship, between a parent, between a romantic relationship, a wife, a son, a daughter. There's literally so many different elements that could come out in. And that's where, when you're in your prayer closet, man, the Lord will provide some of those things. And from my experience, man, it has allowed so much more depth in my friendships. Think about our friendship. Like, we've known each other for a short period of time, but we talk about it all the time. It's like years, bro, because it's super intentional, and it's an honest space where we can bring things to the table. And if you are falling short in something, you don't take it personal. You say, bring it on. Like, I want to learn. I want to grow, because I want to continue to evolve to be the best man I can be, the best husband, best whatever that is, right? So that's a challenge. It'd be maybe the caption is, bring it to the table, baby.
I love it. Absolutely. In one of the blog posts that I wrote a couple of weeks ago, the art of dying, I said, the only person who could have ever walked alone chose not to. And you mentioned, Jesus had 12 guys around him, and that's who he invested in. He could have walked alone. He's the only person that could have, and he chose not to. He chose to invest in the men around him. And I think you're a shining example of that. And that's what I want my life to look like. It doesn't have to be 1,000 people. It needs to be 12 or 10 or 6 or 3 that you really just dive into. But an interesting point, and there's a book called 12 Ordinary Men. It's really great. It gives a background on each one of the disciples. And you get to know them as a person. I'm trying to think.
C.S. Lewis? Or?
No, it's another author. I can source it for you. It gives backstories on every single one of the disciples. And you realize that there were 4 distinct groups of disciples that are always grouped together, and they all had different proximities to Jesus. He had his tight-knit 3, and then he had 3 more that were a little bit more distant, and 3 more that were a little bit more distant. And so you think that you have to give all 12 of these men the exact same attention. They didn't all require that.
Wow.
And so having 3 that you really dive in with, and then another 3 that, you not to say surface level, but you're not as just deep with. They probably have 3 of their own. So for you to fill that gap would actually be taking someone else's place in their 3. Absolutely. And so making sure that you have segmented those men and the amount of time you can spend with them, and that they're able to spend with you, and what you talk about and when you talk about it. But making sure that it's not all 12 on the same distance. It's 12 and they're all in different proximities, because you can't maintain that.
Absolutely.
You can't. So don't think that you have to. But we have a perfect example that we've been given. But we're running up against the clock.
Yes.
I could go on for days. They'll have to do part 2.
Part 2.
How can they continue the conversation? How can they get in touch with you? How can they follow all the exciting things they're doing, you're doing, and your company's doing, and Bring It to the Table Ministries is doing?
Yeah, so the best way to reach out is obviously social media. I have my Ethan _Cortazzo, Cortazzo. If you're interested in software development, we've dabbled in that space. You can email me at ethan.cortazzo@ONEtechnology, ONEtechnologies.com. And then obviously a great source is this man right here. If you guys have Hamilton's information or reach out to Liger Brothers, I'm sure they'll direct accordingly, right?
Yep. Always reach out to either one of us. I love asking the question that way, instead of how can they get in touch with you? It's like, how do you continue the conversation?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't stop.
For sure.
Although we cut the lights off and the cameras stop rolling and we walk out of the door, the conversation doesn't stop. It's kind of like a pastor of mine used to say, all right, as he was walking out, go be the church. It's like, continue the conversation.
Go make disciples, right?
This has been great. I knew it would be. You set the bar high and you always reach higher. Thank you for being a wonderful godly influence on me, and for walking through this journey with me. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to continuing, man. I think what we're doing is different. It's countercultural, right? How we're walking, the way we're handling our business, bringing things to the table, uniting people. And I want to encourage us to continue making that city small, because if you thought about it, Jesus, man, saved the world in 3 years with 12 people, right? A thief, a barbarian, a tax collector, so many different individuals, and he walked everywhere, right? So as we kind of continue to white knuckle through life and race and beat the clock, right? Just got to continue to open up, as you started the conversation on, and just continue allowing, not asking like what God is doing for us, right? Not asking what's happened to us, asking what's happening for us. So
that's good.
Let's keep going, brother. I think this is a good start. So
let's go. For everybody watching in, listening in, sure are glad that you joined us this morning in the jungle. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. Would love for the conversation to continue anytime. But you guys have a great day. Continue to keep the people of Louisiana and Texas in your prayers as they go through the hurricane. And everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next time.